Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Ishan Grish. In this video, I'm going to explain you the circulatory system. There are the four chambers of the heart, which are specially named as the upper two chambers are called the right atrium, the left atrium, and the right atrium. Plural, the term is atria. Collectively, we call the upper chambers as the atria. The lower two chambers are called the left ventricle and the right ventricle. The other important parts of the heart are the cardiac muscles. The walls that divides the left and the right side of the heart is called a septum. The lunar valves, which prevents the expelled blood flowing back to the heart. Bicuspid valve, also known as the mitral valve, tricuspid valve. Both the valves, bicuspid and the tricuspid, prevents the blood flowing back into the atria from the ventricles. Here, the heart as a pump, if you can see the flow of the blood in the loop, the blood first enters into the atria, enters into the ventricles, and then flow out by the help of the bicuspid and the tricuspid valve. You can clearly see in the stages. Blood first enters into the right atria and the left atria. Then it enters into the ventricle, right ventricle, the left ventricle. Upon the contraction of the blood passes out from the ventricle. What is the heart rate? Heart rate, also known as the pulse rate, it is the number of the times your heart beats every minute. The heart rate is expressed in the beats per minute, also can be BPM. The resting heart rate varies from the individual to individual and is affected with the fitness. The more fitter you are, the lower your resting heart rate will be. The average resting heart rate is about 70 to 75 beats per minute. You can measure how fast your heart is beating by taking your pulse rate, which can be done at the wrist or the neck. Count how many times your heart beats in the 6 seconds and then multiply the answer by the 10. Each individual has a maximum heart rate. The fastest that their heart is able to beat, testing it properly is difficult and unpleasant, as it involves pushing your body to its absolute limit. However, maximum heart rate can be estimated using a simple formula. The maximum heart rate (MHR) is equal to 220 minus the age. Let us consider a 25-year-old would have a maximum heart rate of 220 minus the age. Let us consider the age of the patient or the subject is 25. So the maximum heart rate (MHR) is 195 beats per minute. Now the pulse rate is not only the way of the measuring the heart. The stroke volume, it is the amount of the blood pumped out of the left ventricle per beat. Cardiac output, which is the amount of the blood pumped out of the left ventricle of the heart per minute. Cardiac output can be calculated by multiplying the stroke volume by the heart rate. What is the cardiac output of someone with a heart rate of 60 beats per minute and a stroke volume of 90 milliliters? During exercises, the body uses of oxygen and nutrients at a much faster rate. To keep the body supplied with what it needs, the heart beat faster and with a great force. This means that the heart rate and stroke volume increases. What do you think? What happens to the cardiac output? Regular exercises causes the changes to the heart. The heart gets larger in size. The muscular wall becomes thicker and stronger. The stroke volume at the rest increases, leading to a lower resting heart rate. Blood pressure depends on the speed of the blood coming out of the vessel and its width of vessel itself. Arteries. In the arteries, the blood has a higher speed because with width is medium and the pressure is higher. The capillaries, the speed is medium, width is narrow, and the pressure is medium. While in the case of the veins, the speed is low, width is wide, and the pressure is low. An individual's blood pressure is affected by the number of factors, including the age. As the age increases, as you get older, the blood pressure will be affected. Number 2 is the gender. Men tend to have higher blood pressure than the women. The stress can cause increased blood pressure. A diet, salt and saturated fats can increase the blood pressure. Exercises. The fitter you are, the lower your blood pressure is likely to be. So having the blood pressure puts stress on your heart. It can lead to angina, heart attacks, and strokes. The immediate effect of exercise is to raise the blood pressure as the heart beats faster and more powerfully. During the intense exercises, blood flow to the muscles can increase to 35 times its normal volume. Higher blood pressure is necessary in order to get this extra blood to the muscles. However, in the long term, regular exercises reduces blood pressure. The fitter you are, the lower your blood pressure is likely to be. The circulatory system plays an important role in regulating the body temperature. Capillaries, representing the structure of the sweat glands. If the body gets too hot, the capillaries near the surface of the skin widen. Blood is diverted into the skin where the heat can easily radiate away. This is called vasodilation. The water from the blood is excreted as sweat to cool the body. If the body gets too cold, capillaries near the surface of the skin gets narrower. Blood is diverted away from the skin to limit the heat loss. This is called vasodilation, which sweating stops. Blood is the body's means of transporting substances around. It transports the oxygen from the lungs to the heart and then to the body tissues, carbon dioxide from the tissues to the heart and then to the lungs to be expired. It transports the materials like hormones from one to the other organ. It transports the nutrients, especially glucose and minerals, from the intestine to the tissues. It also transports the waste products to the kidneys. Blood is made up of a number of the different elements. The most common cell in the blood is the RBCs, called red blood corpuscles or red blood cells. RBCs are also known as the erythrocytes, which are disc in the shape, made in the bone marrow of the human body. It contains a red-colored compound called hemoglobin, which bonds with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. RBCs transport oxygen to the tissues. How important do you think RBCs are to sports performances? The other cells which the blood contains are the WBCs, which are also known as the leukocytes. They are bigger than the red blood corpuscles and have large nuclei. WBCs act as the body's defense system. Some white blood cells surround and consume the harmful microbes. Some produce chemicals called antibodies that fight against the infection. So how important do you think the white blood corpuscles are to sports performances? The third type of the cells are the platelets carried in the blood, which is formed in the red bone marrow. It produces thrombokinesis, a chemical which is needed for the blood clotting. Blood helps to repair the tissues and close the wounds, both externally and internally. When needed, they grow into the irregular shapes and stick together to form plaque over the wound. So how important do you think the platelets are to the sports performances? The blood cells and platelets are suspended in a substance called plasma. The plasma is composed of the 90% of the water, inorganic salts, glucose, antibodies, urea and other waste products, plasma proteins. Plasma from the blood can be separated from the other components by using a mechanism called centrifugation. Now match the labels to the blood cells. What is the name of the blood cells? It is RBCs, I guess. It is what? WBCs and the platelets. What is the function of the RBCs? To carry oxygen. The function of WBCs is to fight the microorganisms, and platelets to form the blood clots. To carry oxygen is a function of the RBCs. Platelets to fight against the microorganisms. RBCs to form the blood clots. No. To fight against the microorganisms is the function of the WBCs, and to form the blood clot is a function of the platelets. Role of the blood in achieving the sports potential. Because RBCs carries oxygen, which is vital to the muscle function, it is advantageous for a performer to have a high RBCs count, especially in the endurance events. When athletes train or live at the altitude where there is a less oxygen in the air, their bodies compensate by producing extra RBCs. This means that they can perform at a higher intensity than the other athletes performing at the sea level. Now, what is blood doping? An athlete's RBCs count can be illegally boosted through the blood doping. Several months before a competition, blood is removed from a performer. Their body produces more blood to replace the blood that has been removed. So the RBCs are separated out from the removed blood and stored just before the competition. They are re-injected into the competitor, giving them an artificially high RBCs count. Blood doping can improve performances by 20%. However, the extra blood can lead to the dangerous blood clots and all the heart problems associated with the high blood pressure. Finally, can you remember all the key words including the aorta, vena cava, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, pulmonary circulation, systemic circulation, oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, arteries, veins, capillaries, lumen, arteria, ventricles, septum, tricuspid valve, bicuspid valve, semilunar valves, heart rate, stroke volume, cardiac output, blood pressure, vasodilation, vasoconstriction, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, plasma, blood doping. Thank you.